This is a short film which documents Mangrove Action Project's work in a village called Ban Talae Nok in Ranong Province. Their project has implemented a technique called Ecological Mangrove Rehabilitation to return an aquaculture pond back to mangrove. Ban Talae Nok is the uppermost of the pins that you can see on the map here, just south of Ranong town. It's a small Muslim coastal community. The livelihoods are based on fishing. Ban Talae Nok was greatly affected by the Asian tsunami. One of the things that was completely destroyed was the school that was very close to the beach. This has been rebuilt inland and up the hill, but the tsunami managed to kill tens of children in this school. Similarly, an awful lot of houses were completely wiped away. These are just steps in front of what used to be a house. It's a small village with one road running through it. The road runs down to the beach. Otherwise a typically Thai village. Nipa palm is an important natural resource which they use extensively. They collect the leaves from the nipa palms themselves like this, and using other natural materials turn the nipa palm leaves into roof sections. This work is often done by women's groups. It's particularly useful for them because it's flexible from a time point of view. The community is concerned about future access to nipa resource, as an area of nipa they currently harvest material from has been sold to a private owner. So they would like nipa to be grown in the ponds that we are rehabilitating. Similarly, the nipa palm leaves can also be turned into cigarette papers, each roll selling for 2 baht a piece. So onto the work. A lot of the greenery that you can see there is actually dryland forest rather than mangrove. These are aquaculture ponds that have been carved out of what used to be a communal land of mangrove just after the tsunami, and there's a continuing land rights issue because of it. From previous surveying work, we've numbered these ponds. The one that we're looking for with the red arrow is pond 4, and you can see it's in a U shape. North is essentially straight up. Our collection of ponds are linked by the channel you can see there to the open sea. Much further down the channel are a lot of mangrove trees, so we hope that we shouldn't be propagule limited. In proper EMR fashion, the first thing that's been done is a lot of consultation of the community. The issues that strike them are the land rights and land grab. And something that made clear to us is that what they would like is more nipa in order to help them produce roofing sections and cigarette papers. So back to pond 4 and how we found it originally. This is the southwest corner looking north up the left-hand arm or west arm from the southwest corner, and spinning through to the right so as to look along the bottom of the U. It's about 70 meters to then the far corner, the southeast corner, and up the east arm or the right arm. It's about 55 meters. Just before we started this project, the community had managed to cut through one of the berms to reconnect this pond with the outside channel. The first task at the site was to survey the pond floor. This allowed us to understand the relative spot height of the pond floor compared to the vegetation growing naturally around the pond, and also the level of the pond compared to the outside stream. We also found that the salinity was extremely low. The surveying allowed us to produce this scale map including the spot heights. This allowed us to plan what we were going to do next. So it was clear that we had to deepen and widen the channel that linked the pond to the outside world. We also had to regrade the substrate inside the pond to improve the hydrology and the topography. So the next visit was to implement the regrading of the substrate inside the pond. This started with a village meeting to explain exactly what we wanted to do. It was very encouraging to see that between 20 and 30 villagers came out to help us, dressed in all forms of clothing. And over the course of the next 2 or 3 days we managed to take a lot of material from the top of the berm and shift it down towards the water to produce a slope that was much more appropriate for mangrove growth. The villagers worked incredibly hard through all sorts of weather, including pouring rain and scorching sun. The team took great care in explaining to the local people exactly what we were doing and what would need to happen after we had gone. and making sure that the slopes that we were producing were the appropriate height for nipper palm and other mangroves. And the finished result of all the grading work after 2 or 3 days looked like this. We're fortunate that in the middle of our pond there's an area of natural mangrove that still survives. So we also took the opportunity to increase the hydrology and the flow through this system and removed all the debris and dead wood in the ponds, including old fish cages and netting. We also widened and deepened the connecting channel to make sure we had as good a flow in and out of the pond as possible. The next visit to Ban Talae Nok started with a village meeting as always. We went to great lengths to explain exactly what we wanted to do to try and improve the hydrology of the pond. From our survey we knew that the pond was flushing poorly and some of the fine material off the newly regraded slope had been washed down onto the pond floor. It appears slightly reddy brown on the right hand side there. So we used split bamboo poles to mark out where we wanted to excavate a deeper, wider channel across the pond floor to encourage better hydrology and better flow of water. We brought the villagers some extra tools because we knew that this process would damage a lot of their existing tools, as you can see in the pictures here. The mud on the pond floor was extremely soft, so rather than walking through it and churning it up, villagers broke up into teams to hand bungees of mud along from the digger to where it was going to be piled up. For 3 days they worked incredibly hard and never lost their sense of fun, however dirty they became. The mud was almost semi-liquid, so we put the mud into corrals rather than just piling it up. These corrals were made by using debris found in the pond and building temporary walls to hold the mud back to allow it to dry out. We also widened the channel further and deepened it as much as we could within the time. Having completed the excavation on the east side of the pond, the villagers then wanted to plant some nipper palm. The villagers had grown these seedlings themselves and planted them out on the newly produced slopes, as well as on the pond floor. So at the end of the digging, the site looked like this, with a much deeper, better channel for the water to flow around in. After the site work, we then installed some monitoring plots. We put these together using 2-meter metal rods and explained very carefully to the local people why we were putting these in place. These were put at various heights to be able to monitor natural regeneration, including some areas that covered part of the newly excavated canal and right at the far end of the arms of the pond. The monitoring plots can be seen here as square boxes on the map. The final project with the village was to consolidate all this work and learning into an EMR training session which was held at the newly built school. The participants included local villagers who had taken part in the work that we had done, conservation group members from other local villages, all facilitated by a professional facilitator. We then went back to the site to help bring theory and practice together. During the course of this EMR training, we were joined by a film crew from the University of British Columbia, who were producing a documentary about the relationship between shrimp aquaculture and mangroves. We then moved south to Krabi town in Krabi province and ran a further EMR session with most of the participants talking about a different case history in Banglandar village. This village is based in a Krabi estuary Ramsar site where we met the local people and had lunch with them, and then heard from the local people how they ran a successful crab bank before looking at the EMR site in Banglandar, which follows very much the same principles as Ban Talae Nok. Thank you very much for your attention. This concludes the film. Matt would like to thank the villagers of Ban Talae Nok for their unfailing support and financial assistance from BMZ.